Hello everyone to the another edition of EPW Conversations, and today we have with us Professor Anuradha Chenoy, who frankly needs no introduction to the readers of EPW. She is a regular strategic affairs columnist, and she retired from School of International Studies as a professor and the Dean of School of International Studies as well. So today we will be discussing the developments in and around West Asia. So before we get to the heart of the matter, the thing which is bothering us, or which is an ongoing development, is the killing of three Indian seafarers and another vessel being attacked with, I think, 20 Indian seafarers. So how do you see the reaction by the Indian government to what has transpired after this US attack
Look,
on these
firstly,
vessels?
yeah, it's very unfortunate that India has got caught not in this crossfire because their vessels have been coming in, and this is the third ship, three times,
Mm.
and all three have been attacked by US marine fire. And we saw clips in which they're asking for help, and the US has behaved very badly, considering that they talk of India as allies, but and they
Yep.
talk in these high terms. But these ships looked like they were targeted. Now we will discuss this whole imbroglio, but we need to condemn this attack firstly. And
Yep.
I think, of course, India has formally lodged a protest, but I think they have to be much harder on this.
Mm.
My own opinion is that they did call the US envoy and register a complaint, but they need
Mm.
to be harder in their narrative on this. And also, since they consider Israel their friend, they need to say that they need to push for a peaceful and quick negotiated solution. India cannot afford to take sides, is what I'm saying in this, because it is a very complex West Asian or Middle East, whatever you want to call it, situation, which we will talk about. But right now, I think India has been hurt. Number one, with this attack. Second,
Mm.
by the fact that we've not been able to get oil, we've not
Yep.
been able to get fertilizer. Third, we've not been able to send our huge amount of exports through Hormuz into the
Mm.
Gulf. Fourth, because our workers, our labor, some of them are stranded in the Gulf.
Mm.
Fifth, because our capital, a lot of finance and capital is there in Dubai and other places. And there's not been enough discussion on this. Of course, some newspapers have said that India has these three F problems: fertilizer, finance, and fuel.
Yep.
But the policy of India, I mean, everyone is wondering what this policy really is. How much is there a strategic shift in which they are bending backwards to accommodate uh, the US and Israeli interests? So I'm also worried about that because we need to see how much is it actually in Indian interest, or is it Indian interest to retain a stronger strategic autonomy and keep away from these kind of three-legged relations which are
Mm.
emerging in the Gulf.
Yep. And that is ultimately the problem is with the US-led blockade of uh, Hormuz, and that blockade is supposedly to lift the Iranian blockade of Hormuz, which was not there. Till the time US-Israeli forces attacked in February, that Hormuz Strait was open, and now to open something which was already open before you attack, you are basically threatening to escalate. And right now, we don't know where this situation is exactly with the kind of conflicting statements which President Trump keeps making. I think the latest one was he has received some agreement from Iran and Iranians have denied that. But where are we in terms of negotiations? Is there a stalemate, or is there, of course, there is a distrust, particularly and rightly so, if one may say, on the Iranian side. But where are the negotiations right now?
Okay, so I think our viewers need to understand that this is a very long term uh, confrontation. And there are several confrontations within this confrontation, and therefore the negotiations have to address the root cause of several of these confrontations. The first confrontation is between Iran and the US, which goes back to the Iranian Revolution of 1979. Since then, they've had a problem with each other. Iran sees the US as wanting to assert hegemony. Iran is very strongly anti-US hegemony in the region power. And Iran has connected, it's got its allies in Lebanon, earlier in Syria, earlier in Iraq, even now in Iraq.
Yeah.
Of course, they're linked with Hamas. So they have an anti imperialist ideology. That's one. Second is Iran's contradictions with Israel on account of this, where Israel has an agenda of expanding. Israel is a state which doesn't identify its boundaries, and they want to continuously expand. So, in that, Israel now at this stage wants to expand. They want to do two things. One, they want to decimate Iran, which they see as the fountainhead as a boulder and roadblock to their expansionism. Second, they see Iran as a major resistance, and third, they see Iran as supporting these non-state, very strong allies that it has, including Hamas within Israel, though you'll see Iran did not intervene in this whole Gaza thing so far, only from outside. But they are supporters of Hezbollah in Lebanon for sure, and we'll talk about Lebanon in a bit. And they also are supporters of the Houthis in Yemen, and we can talk about that also. And other non-state actors who keep doing these pinpricks on Israel. So Israel wants to decimate Iran, and Israel is like a forward base for the US for hegemony in the region. It's also linked to US interests in oil politics. Now, of course, US is the biggest oil producer, but they don't want oil from there, but they want to control the petrodollar, because West Asian, these Middle East countries, they sell their oil in dollars. So it's a big route for dollars for the US. It's a hub for them. And they want to control oil prices too. And three, they know that to control oil from the Middle East is to control the development and need of oil for countries like India, China, Southeast Asia, etc., all of whom are dependent on this oil very much. So there are various things involved in controlling this oil. Now, as far as your main question on negotiations. Firstly, this war has been a continuation, therefore, of these earlier wars, but especially the 12-day war last year in June, where the issue was Trump said they're attacking Iran because they don't want to see a nuclear Iran. Now, it was clear Iran has repeatedly said that they're not going nuclear. They have enriched uranium, just like we or others have, for peaceful purposes, medical purposes. And they're quite a capable country. I've been there. But at the same time, US had also torn up the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action signed by Obama in 2015, which was a very good plan endorsed by the EU countries, Europe, and the Security Council, in which Iran had promised not to enrich uranium beyond a very limited amount. But Trump didn't believe it, and he tore it up. So there was this confrontation. They bombed Iran in the middle of negotiations in June 2025. And so this phase from February 28, 2026 is a second phase of the same thing. After Trump having said we've demolished all their facilities, Israel has pushed America into this second phase of this war. In any case, June 8th, there was, first February 28th, the second phase started. Then May 6th, there was a ceasefire. Now, Iran's terms in the ceasefire are very clear.
Yeah.
They said this is not just a ceasefire between US and Israel on one side and Iran on the other, but also on Lebanon. Now,
Yeah.
what is the issue therefore on Lebanon? Let's bring that in.
Yeah.
Lebanon borders North Israel, that means south of Lebanon is on their border, and Israel has had an eye on South Lebanon since the 1980s, because 1984 they had taken over 10% of Lebanon territory, and 1984 Hezbollah was formed.
Yeah.
Now, Lebanon is a very divided country. It was French colonialism, trustee, etc. got their liberation when French got occupied by the Germans in World War II, and got independent state then. And the French wanted, South Lebanon to be Shia and North to be Christian, and some Sunni. So I think 51% probably is Shia, and they're very close to Iran. And Hezbollah is the own. So within Lebanon doesn't have its own proper army. Hezbollah is the army. It's a militia, but it is the only one which safeguards Lebanese territory. And they've thrown out Israel from South Lebanon at least 2 or 3 times. In the year 2000 also they threw them out. Then again they entered, then 2006. And now again they have entered, because Israel is saying they want a buffer between them and these Arabs, Shia Arabs. But they're not succeeding, because Hezbollah rises again and again. Israel had those pager attacks, killed their leadership, Nasrallah, etc. But again they've risen. And they're in alliance with Iran. Iran supports them quite a lot. But I'm not saying they're a proxy. They have their independent position of Lebanon. Lebanon is what is important for them. So when there was a May 6th ceasefire agreed to by Trump and Iran, Israel never agreed to the ceasefire and kept bombing South Lebanon and evacuating and pushing South Lebanon people back, killing many, apparently over 3,000 in the last 1 month or so.
Yeah.
And so the ceasefire was broken by Israel repeatedly. And you saw, I think Mr. Trump was quite angry because he was trying to do a deal with Iran, because American people are quite tired of this. And the fact is that in this June 8th, even second escalation, both times Iran has come out in front. They've taken a lot of damages, but done a lot of damages to US bases. There are different calculations. Some people say 17 bases. I'm not giving the number because, this is all military intelligence and one doesn't know the final number. But they have done hardware attrition of US and Israel. That means their capabilities have been established. So Mr. Trump did want some kind of negotiated settlement. But Israel has continued to pushing. And you saw that conversation between Trump and Netanyahu, which came in all the headlines, in which Trump said, everyone hates you, Mr. Netanyahu, you're isolated. But still, Israel continued. So on 8th June, finally, when Israel bombed Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, Iran said enough is enough. And just this few days ago, they sent their missiles. And they told America, step back, we are going to fire. And their terms were very clear, and they bombed US bases again on 8th June when Israel bombed Beirut and Dahia province just outside Lebanon. Iran struck bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan. And Jordan, according to various sources I saw, including an Israeli channel, they said various F-16s and various hard F-35, sorry, jets
Yeah.
of the US were damaged. They couldn't unscramble and take off. And at that time, apparently, one US Apache helicopter was
Yeah, was down.
also shot by Iran. And then Trump said he will hit hard, very hard, the last 2 days, 10th and 11th, which he did. And the Strait of Hormuz was fully closed. In that time, on the 11th, the Indian oil tanker also got hit. So you can see the damage everywhere and how it started spreading. And again, energy crisis and a warning from Wall Street and others that oil can rise to $200 a barrel and the world economy can be hit. So now again, yesterday, I think in the morning, Mr. Trump said, I'm going to hit them harder. I'll take over Kharg Island. I will do this and that. And in the evening, he said, oh, we might get to a deal. Now, CNN said Trump has 38 times said we are reaching a deal. So no one knows because Iran said that the ceasefire makes no sense.
Yep.
You have to stop bombing and remove Israeli troops from South Lebanon also, because for Iran, Iran and Lebanon are two fronts of the same war. Their ideological goals are the same: push Israel back into its borders and have a new Middle East security architecture. They do not accept America's Middle East security architecture, which Jared Kushner etc. had proposed, these Abraham Accords, where all these countries will recognize Israel, but in that Saudis have said they will not until there is a two-state solution. So nothing has worked on that. So the Middle East does need a new Middle East security architecture, but for that, first you need a negotiated settlement with Iran because Iran will not agree. And now the thing is, they have established some kind of balance of power. No one would have believed that Iran could come to this level of establishing one, deterrence without a nuclear weapon, deterrence through controlling the Straits of Hormuz and global energy supply, two, establishing its capability by having its missiles, hundreds of them, attack and all American bases where its ships had to go very far away from the Middle East. There's Sixth Fleet and Seventh Fleet and General Ford and that big armada had to move away from the Persian Gulf. So Iran established that. So third, it established that its missiles could penetrate Israel's famous Iron Dome, which they said was impenetrable. So the security, all provided by America, the air defenses collapsed. And even 2 days ago, they hit the Haifa oil refinery. And earlier also. So, Israel is vulnerable. So, fourth, the two paradigms of Middle East security architecture are quite different. America and Israel want absolute security for themselves and no security for the others. Iran is saying, and now Saudis, etc., are also saying, let's have collective security or a non-aggression pact. And China and Russia are supporting this idea that you cannot just have Israeli security. Iran will stop attacking Israel if they are also secure, if they also have access. And in the middle, so many things have happened. Iran's strategic reserve is frozen, more than 12 billion or $20 billion. So all this is on the negotiating table. So what is on the negotiating table, Nachiket? I'll tell you. Number one, what's on the negotiating table is, of course, the enriched uranium which Iran possesses, even though their facilities in Natanz, Isfahan, Shiraz, and outside Tehran have been bombed, but their facilities are deep underground. But they're not capable, but they do have enriched uranium. Both China and Russia said you transfer the enriched uranium here, and that's the end of it. But US didn't agree. They said, no, you give us the enriched uranium. So Iran should give them all that enriched uranium, which Iran said, no, you bomb us again,
Yeah.
we'll bomb you back. We're not giving it. Now, this morning, I just read, now I don't know if it's confirmed or whether again Trump will change his mind. He said, okay, Iran can keep some of its enriched uranium, and that can be part of the deal, and there'll be inspections by the IAEA, which Iran is willing to accept. The second thing to be negotiated is about Iran's strategic reserve, which the US, billions of dollars, which the US has frozen since so many years. Part of it lies in Qatar, some of it in banks in Korea and US, etc. So they're saying, give us back our strategic reserves and lift some sanctions so we can reconstruct. So first, the US apparently said we can give some, like let's say $6 billion. But ultimately, no one knows the final amount, if it will be agreed to or not. This is all being negotiated. Earlier by Pakistan, who acted as intermediary, I would say, sometime, but not really mediator. They were messenger. There was one kind of conversation in Islamabad between Vance and the Iranian team, Kalipaf. But after that, none. So that is the second. So first is, of course, a ceasefire. Second is enriched uranium. Third is the strategic reserve. Fourth is compensation. Fifth is also Lebanon. Iran has been such a good friend to Lebanon, saying that there will be the fighting in Lebanon should also be stopped. We will not have a ceasefire if Israel continues to attack and enter into Lebanon. They see that Israel cannot be trusted. So there's a matter of confidence and trust which is broken down. Twice during negotiations, Israel has attacked Iran, and the US has had to follow. US and Israel being so linked. Now, this is US's election year, so there is pressure on Trump to just link a bit. But midterms in November. But you can see there are two things which have happened in the US. Okay, so first let's finish this deal. So these are the 4-5 things which have to be finalized in the deal. And Trump keeps saying, I mean, you can see what 37 times a deal is happening, but Iran has said no deal until there is a proper ceasefire. Lebanon is included, and all this direct shooting stops. So as far as the deal is concerned, I think the next few days will establish whether the deal happens, and if it does, we will know that Iran has succeeded in not losing this war for the first time for a Middle East country. And second, it has established credibility. It's broken the American narrative of demonizing the Iranian leadership. Iranian people are solidly behind it. A lot of people, even if the Gulf states are not, the regimes, they have also changed, and we can talk about the Gulf states also and their role, because they have been hit also.
But the ceasefire, I mean, Iran has made it clear that the ceasefire cannot be the typical Israeli understanding of it. That basically you seize and we keep firing, we fire. So what they did in Lebanon, and then I mean, you mentioned how Iran has been a solid friend to Lebanon, but it's the Lebanese government itself which tried to, through the Washington Tract, tried to cut deals with Israel, very effectively ceding the sovereignty and institutionalizing perhaps the ethnic cleansing in southern Lebanon. And I think until this intransigence of Israel is curbed by their supporters or their patrons, I don't think Iranians can really trust any guarantees in absence of any demonstrable reining in of Israel.
Absolutely, Nachiket. Now, Lebanon is a key factor. The Hezbollah is a key ally of Iran. They have lost a lot, and Iran knows that if they do not support Lebanon, then Israel will attack them again because they would have entered, they would have decimated Lebanon, just like now what's happened in Syria. Israel has taken over area beyond the Golan Heights after the Assad regime fell. And the regime is installed by the US and Israel, the so-called terrorist regime, which is now very legitimate, they're also worried, and because they're cutting Syria into pieces by encouraging a civil war, and in Lebanon also it's not, and the US is trying to negotiate with the official Lebanese government. But that's of no use because the Lebanese people can see that
Yeah.
only Hezbollah can save Lebanon as a country. The
Yeah.
Lebanese government of Joseph Aoun, who's just installed there, thanks to the Americans, he will compromise and say, okay, you can take 15%, 12%, 18% of Lebanon, and Israel's desire will never cease. And as you said very rightly, they're not just attacking South Lebanon. First, it was to the Litani River, and I suggest anyone should look at the map, and now to the Zafrani River. They are desertifying that area. They're removing all the villages. Even the trees have been cut. And they're making it completely a barren land. It's like they're doing ethnic cleansing like they did in Gaza. So it's a similar experiment. They have the same model again and again. So Iran can see that on the ground, and they said they will not allow it. And Hezbollah is fighting back for all its poverty, for all the fact that it's very local arms, but they're on the ground and they're hitting back, and they have Iran as a support. Now, the situation is also changing in all of the Middle East, and I think
Right.
I just want to explain about this Saudi, UAE, Jordan, etc. Now, what has happened is Oman is very small and it's on the other side of the Gulf of Hormuz. And Oman and Iran are close also because 1980s they had an agreement on the Strait of Hormuz because they're on two sides of the strait. And now the Iranian parliament has passed a bill on Persian Strait Authority, which will look after the strait. Like, they should take some toll because of environment, because of to help the ships go by, which is opposed by the US. But Iran is determined because that will help it rebuild if it doesn't get compensation. India is also not for the toll, but after all, there is a toll on the Straits of Suez Canal, Panama Canal, Dardanelles. I mean, there are laws of the sea, laws of the straits, etc. So that that will have a legal aspect. I think India should go according to international law, quite frankly. So, so Trump also threatened to bomb Oman. He said, "I'll bomb Oman out of existence if they're not neutral and if they go with Iran." On the other hand, in the June conflict, when Iran fired these missiles and these bases, so where were those bases? They were in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Kuwait, UAE. UAE got the biggest hits. So all the Gulf cooperation country, all the GCC countries got hit. So that means the security, there were two things that happened. One, all these countries have given the US billions of dollars to secure their security. But when that attack took place after February 28th, and 28th February, Iran attacked these bases,
Yeah.
they saw that the Americans were, number one, saving the Israelis, number two, saving themselves, number three, saving their embassies, but not
Mm.
these countries. So the bases became a liability. Instead of protecting, they became targets.
Mm.
If they didn't have bases, Iran would not have attacked them. And they said that. Keep the Americans out, or we're going to attack. We can't go
Yeah.
and attack Washington and New York, but we can attack them here. And those bases have those deals in which those countries are not, whatever happens at the base, those countries don't know. That's the thing about American bases. It becomes an
Mm.
island of the USA or Israel.
Mm.
So Iran took the legal way and said, we're attacking America, but we're doing it right here in our neighborhood.
Mm.
And they said, we have no intentions of attacking y'all. We are only attacking the military capabilities of the US in your country. So move them out. So for these countries, these bases became a liability. And therefore, they needed a new security architecture, um, so that, to save themselves. Now, in this, these countries are kind of split. And how are they split? On the one side, UAE has very deeply integrated with Israel. They are part of the Abraham Accord. They recognize
Yeah.
Israel and they do at their bidding. Saudis see Israel as a threat, even though they have very close relations with the US. They have not recognized the US. And the Saudis have problems with UAE on their own, bilateral. What are their problems between Saudi and UAE? One,
Yeah.
that they have a difference of opinion on Israel. Where UAE is integrated with Israel, Saudi is critical of Israel. Second, UAE is a country which funds a lot of militia around the region. So in Somalia, there has been a secessionist movement. So Israel and UAE have supported the rapid support forces
So
which
that.
have seceded from Somalia and made Somaliland. And Israel has recognized Somaliland. India criticized it. They said, we don't recognize Somaliland. Saudis are dead opposed to Somaliland because they feel Saudi is being contained by UAE and Israel. Sudan also has a civil war. Somalia has a civil war. Yemen has a civil war. So UAE is supporting all various militias against the Saudis in all these civil wars. So that is a second. Third is their competition on oil, energy exports, etc. Earlier, they both had a problem with Iran, but the Chinese helped an agreement, or at least rapprochement, between Iran and Saudis 2-3 years ago. So now Saudis don't have a problem with Iran, and they're willing. And so what is Saudi doing now? They are trying to diversify their security so that they're not just dependent on the US. Of course, they will not break their ties with the US because they take a lot of technology and weapons from the US. They'll continue, but they are also building links with Russia, China, Pakistan. They've signed a defense agreement, which some people believe is or has a nuclear element. In case they have a nuclear attack, then Pakistan is a nuclear state, and therefore they've signed this defense agreement, which America has blessed in all these talks between Asim Munir and Trump, and he's going to back and forth to America very often. So Saudis have also been in talks with Turkey, and I think one good proposal coming out of Saudis, which will only come if this negotiation between US and Iran work, is a defense non-aggression pact as part of a regional architecture. A non-aggression pact between Egypt, Saudis, Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, and I don't know who else will join. So that is a good arrangement if it happens. But Saudis are definitely diversifying, and if you want to see less bloodshed, and if you want to again go back to the pre this war energy security, then you need to have some non-aggression kind of pact. So that is the other thing. Now, UAE, the other problem with UAE, since we were talking about the UAE, is it's a United Arab Emirate. It's not one country, it's a
Yeah, yeah,
federation
seven.
of seven
Hmm.
emirates, in which Abu Dhabi is the strongest and most centralized, with this Mohammed bin Zayed as president. And this war has disturbed this federal arrangement because
Hmm.
Dubai and Sharjah have always felt a bit neglected. So I think for India to have too much to do with UAE is also dangerous because there are a lot of
Hmm.
internal politics out there. One, its relations with Israel, which no Arab or Muslim on the ground actually supports. So that regime can be shaky. You never know when. Of course, they control, these are all monarchies and they have a very strong centralized authoritarian control. But that's one thing. Second,
Hmm.
these other regions of the Emirates, which are not as powerful as Abu Dhabi. Third, their conflict with Saudis and their problem. Fourth, their conflict with the Houthis, which are aligned to
Hmm.
Iran. Now, that is something we haven't discussed. The Houthis, there's a civil war also in Yemen since 12 years,
Yeah.
where there is one internationally recognized government, the IRG, which is not based in Yemen and not in Sana'a, maybe a bit in
Hmm.
the capital, but they function from some hotel in Egypt or somewhere. Because the Houthis, who their name is Ansar Allah, it's a
So,
tribe. Yeah, so in the south, etc., they are quite very strong, and they are based at the Bab al Mandab, which is on the tip of the
hmm.
Red Sea, which is a
Red Sea.
very narrow strait through which from Suez Canal you have to pass the Red Sea and then go into Persian Gulf, Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean, etc. So Saudi Arabia, which can either send its oil through Hormuz or on the west side from the Red Sea, and Israel sends their ships from the Red Sea. Now, the Houthis, who are also ideologically aligned with Iran and Lebanon, they're saying we are closing this Red Sea. They had done it earlier also.
Yeah.
But through earlier through May and June, when the this phase of the war happened, they didn't because they're a very poor country. They're on humanitarian assistance. There's been a famine and drought there, and they fight in chappals, but they are battle hardened. And they have this control. They can go in a small ship and fire at a tanker and set it on fire. And that's what they did to the Americans. And Americans had a ceasefire in them a few months back. But now, in this latest last 1 week, they have fired some 25 missiles into Israel, all made in Yemen locally. So, and they're also against UAE. So it's a very complex situation. And countries which are wise already, Russia and China, who've gained, both are gainers from this war. Russia,
Hmm.
because oil prices
Indeed.
have gone up, it's given them a boost. China, because they have a rail link from Iran through Pakistan, full connected. They're not going to get short of oil. They have a lot of reserves. They have links with Uzbekistan and all kinds of things. The countries which will suffer will be India, Southeast Asia, Malaysia, and Japan, etc., which get their oil from here. So these countries must put brakes. They should not get involved in the local politics between UAE versus Saudis. Even if Pakistan has a defense agreement with Saudis, we shouldn't see it like that because we want to have a strategic partnership with the US. And both India and Pakistan are being balanced by the US. They don't see them separately. If they give something to Pakistan, if they give something to India, they will give it to Pakistan also. They are playing both. So if India wants to get involved in a three-legged race with Pakistan, I mean, it's. I don't think it would be a very good idea. They have to independently link with Saudis and UAE and Turkey, etc., and have good relations with all. I think that is what strategic autonomy will mean. Already we've suffered a lot, so we shouldn't, I believe, say that because Saudis and Pakistanis have a link, and Iran and Pakistan is negotiating, so we should get closer to Israel. Look, the US is playing all of them. And any day they can, if they want, they can even drop Israel, because that is a demand coming from the US public now. So India has to watch for its interests and not get too close, and they should not support a state committing this kind of genocide. We have had for so many decades a moral high ground of how we behave. And what is our Indian vision? One, strategic autonomy. Two, we are a voice of the collective global south. Not the and only voice, but one voice. We are a part of BRICS. We have friends in all of West Asia, of Middle East. We are friends with Persia, Iran. We had put in a lot of money in this international south transport
Corridor.
economic instec, the communication. So we should have that kind of policy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could, in fact, on this note, we could get back to when we started with the Indian response. And so, I mean, India's stature in global south could potentially be diminished if we continue to be perceived as putting all our eggs in one basket and that basket has a big hole. So, like with the continued Israeli intransigence, if we are perceived as too close to Israel all the time, then it doesn't bode well for our stature in global south as well. Because I mean, in global south there is immense opposition or opprobrium for the Israeli actions. I mean, the ongoing genocide in Gaza since 2023 and its multiple extensions. So, with this sort of a situation, India really needs to stay true in spirit to the principle of strategic autonomy rather than aligning themselves openly.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And I think that's the position I would take, because for India to develop, number one, they need a multipolar world. They've said that. And it's not that they're just getting a multipolar world. So far, India has also played a role in constructing this multipolarity. How? By linking with, developing BRICS, being part of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Even though we've left SARC, we believe in multilateralism, we believe in UN principles, we believe in international law, and that is what will help India's development. Now, you can't get so close to a country which doesn't believe in any of these.
Yeah.
Neither Israel nor US, they don't want others to have strategic autonomy. They believe in only absolute security for themselves. They believe in unilateralism and a state of exception for themselves. They believe only in their development, that they're an extension of the colonial period in new ways. You can call it what you want. You don't have to call it neocolonialism if you don't believe in that framework. But you can see what their interest is, the tariffs, the mega, etc. And Rubio straight off telling Europeans, hey, join us again in this colonialism. So our interests don't coincide with them. It's in fact the opposite. They believe in unipolarity, we believe in multipolarity. They don't think countries of the global south should have strategic autonomy. We are committed to strategic autonomy. They don't care about the global south, they want extraction. We want global south to also improve and be our partners. They want to contain China. We are not into that game. We don't want to be part of any conflict. Now, US and China have had this new equation for the Indo-Pacific, where they have agreed on what they call stable strategic stability, etc., where they're respecting each other's red lines. So, which means India has, been downgraded, and we wouldn't have been downgraded if we have show our own capability and strength. But if we want to be such a close partner to the US and keep quiet if our shipmen are attacked, don't want to say anything if we have tariffs, if we commit to spending $500 billion in the US when we are begging for FDI, then it shows, and the whole of the global south is talking about them and saying, what has happened to our great friend India? We have to push for BRICS, NAM, SCO, and have our own engagement. And some groups have said, important political groups have said, we should rethink and even talk to Pakistan. I mean, it's up to the MEA to see what is good for that. I mean, of course, we don't want to talk in case tomorrow there's some terror attack. But at the same time, the international community is not buying our discourse. They are seeing Pakistan according to their own geopolitical interests. And just like we've developed so much trade with China, and I think this recent development that we are opening it for investments on non-strategic sectors. And we continue to put pressure even on America that we have to do our trade and get oil from Russia, but we should not accept this 1 month you are allowed to buy Russia oil. 1 month you're allowed to do this, and next month you're not. We should not accept this. Stand firm. If smaller countries, whether it's Iran, Mongolia, Saudi Arabia, even some US allies, they are standing strong. India should again get back its spine. If we are talking about that, we are a middle power, great power, however we want to frame ourselves, we have to show independence and not be dragged with America's skirts. In America itself, there's a huge debate. So we'll be left outside everything if we don't go to our principles, as you yourself very correctly said, one of multipolarity, committed to it and constructing it every day with our own agreements, two, of strategic autonomy, three, of linking with the global south, four, of having a good balance with all, but not being too aligned with states which are opposing all these principles.
Right. Because ultimately the peace in West Asia, morally as well as pragmatically, on both grounds, is what the world desires, and it is what India should actively desire and not simply passively hope for it. So if we can play that role of actively contributing in any way to establishing a just peace, we should be forthcoming in doing that. So, on this note, we can conclude this session. I request all the viewers to subscribe to EPW. Whatever could be discussed in this short span of time, Professor Chenoy has succinctly elaborated. However, please go to EPW website and check the articles in Strategic Affairs columns and other articles which Professor Chenoy has been contributing to regularly, and other EPW articles as well on this and other topics. Thank you very much for joining.